Hey everyone, just recording your update for today on BTC SOL, total market cap, and liquidity. It's been a very interesting New York session. We've got on the one-day liquidity, SOL has pretty much gone up and hit those one-day targets nearly. Like I was expecting 188, and I know it's kind of splitting hairs, but I think we stopped at about 187 point something. But we still do have that little bit of liquidity there on the chart, which would really take everything on the one day if we did that. Now our downside targets are still there. We're going to be very heavily bullish in this liquidity if we take any more to this upside. And then when you look at BTC, BTC is just living in the middle. So, we're a spike up in BTC to 116 would wipe out the longs, but there's a very clear path in there down to 110 as well. And that's just on one-day liquidity. So one-day liquidity is, generally speaking, something that can be taken quite quickly. And the roadmap is there to maybe do a little pump to 116, then a dump to 110, or maybe we finally do that 110 and then we go up, from there. But either way, that liquidity is looking a bit sketchy on SOL, and definitely we could see a swipe in both directions on BTC. They're really out of whack, and normally you would expect to see one come in line to sort of match the other. So that's the 1 day. If we look at the 7-day liquidity, you could easily see a short squeeze based on that seven-day liquidity. Anything up to sort of like 220. Sorry, anything up to 120. 220, wouldn't that be lovely? Anything up to 120 on BTC. But same downside targets still exist, and if they're going to go for a bit of a pump, they might just take the bottom first and then go. SOL is showing a decent chunk of liquidity up to 191. There's some confluence with that 191 area for retesting some of the things that closed yesterday, so maybe, and then up to 202 as well. So downside targets down to 170 still exist, and interestingly, there's just not really much there. So the 7-day and the 1 day, they're just not showing a lot below 170. Makes me think if they go to 170, they'll probably bounce because they need to get people to long and put their liquidations under 170. So see, might still have a couple of big sort of tricky bounces coming. So let's have a look at the 30-day. The 30-day liquidity sort of, again, would be quite dry if they went down to that 170 area on SOL. And there really just isn't much there to bother going above the 200 area at this stage. So, but it is looking, when we get to that level, it's still looking, bullish. There's a lot of people longing it. I think they're all just waiting for it to take off. And when I look at the charts on SOL, it really does look like it is going to take off, but I don't think these people will get a free ride. So it might be a bit of a trap there. And the 30-day liquidity is telling exactly the same story. So 1 day liquidity, 7-day liquidity, and 30-day liquidity on BTC are all showing the ginormous cluster of liquidity to be taken down to 110. So 1 day normally happens pretty quick. 7-day usually can take a bit more time, and 30-day can take a bit more time. But if they're all pointing to the same place, it's usually something that is not going to be left. So we'll see how that goes. Only reason it may be left is if they start to develop some kind of origin support level where we are now. Maybe they bounce off that and go up, because it is possible too many people are just eyeing up this 210 level or lower as an entry. So those markets just will not do what the masses want them to do, because they want the masses to be left out. So as far as how liquidity has been, you can sort of see the absolute tear that SOL went on, but you can also see how that doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at what BTC is doing. And what's starting to happen now is all this 100x leverage is starting to come in at 185 and areas like 184, and because the crypto market is really quite a small market in the scheme of things, it doesn't take much to push into that, and then the escalation of stop losses being hit can just send the price down. So the higher time frame liquidity, as you can see, is still sitting there in those 170s, and then the next big cluster is in the 150s. There's just too much of a gap, really, on SOL to warrant a thesis of a straight drop to 150, because it just, how would it travel through just all that empty space? It's not economical. You want to trigger mass liquidations so that those stop losses become a cascading effect to the downside. It lowers the price in the markets, gets them to a level, everyone gets scared, and then they start to pack their bags and fill them up and so on. So it's yeah, still, it just looks very out of whack with BTC. Okay, let's have a look at the charts. So that's a heck of a recovery on SOL BTC Strength. Now, it did retest the daily break level there at 15774. It did create this down-facing range trend, and so there was always going to be a move back to that hold level, but that's a really fast move. And if it closes today, it will actually be not a hard close, but it will be a hit of the break level, which means this whole candle is no longer current, so you can pretty much just delete that. That's gone. It'll be a hit of the break level, and if it is to then get some kind of accumulation close over the top of that, then it could bounce. It's gone straight back up inside the trend, so it lost this daily trend, which technically that's a range trend, so I'll leave it on the chart, but that's your new normal trend, and it's holding that. It's above the break level. Looks like it really wants to hold on to that 1.6 level for now. So the hold level that's up here at 16674, that's been tested. We've never hit the break level at 17153, not in this ranging. So, and that's also above the exterior daily trend. So I would be thinking that if this does take a dip back to trend, if it does take a dip back to the hold level even, I mean, realistically, a close up here is showing that the strength of BTC versus SOL is really going to start to push towards SOL. It's and then if BTC does do that dive to 110, you know, first time I'm going to say this, but maybe we do not see those 150s. We might just bounce from the 170s at most on a dive, and then go off to the races from there. If this thing gets too strong, I may not even see the 170s. It's a heck of a flip to have straight off that range trend. Normally the range trends would test the hold level, and then what they do is they close and they create a new range trend, which is going to be that. And then the first touch of that range trend normally is some kind of rejection, but because you've got this older range trend coming through here, it could even just reject it there. It might stay within that 1.6 area. So it's quite bullish on that. Yeah, if it starts to target these higher 17073 type areas, and it does it uh, slower, in a slower manner, like close above the exterior trend and then target it, then it could start to break that trend. And if it breaks that trend after touching any of these break levels, then you're going higher. Is the gist of it. So it's looking pretty bullish. This we did nearly in splitting hairs. I was sort of looking for that rejection at 66.4 on dominance and safety assets. We got to 66.39, so we'll take that as a win. And as you can see, we're just rejecting all the way back down now. So on the 3-day, if we stay down at this sort of level, we'll create some kind of hold resistance here at 65.62. And if it rejects off that and just keeps going down, then we know the story of that. That means alt season really. And The most obvious place for this to bounce is about 60.82%. So that's probably just an area to keep an eye on. And if it's down there and the market's looking really euphoric, it could be the end of alt markets or alt season. Total has gone straight back up inside its trend. So if it closes up inside here again, then that actually means it's holding support. So that's pretty impressive. And then it could potentially bounce back up to test that 355 area or up to the 362 hold. So that's looking kind of bullish. All right, now over to the bad news. BTC still sucks. It just doesn't look good. So BTC, it's not my one chart. I must have broken my one-day chart. Sorry, folks. That's based off something. Let's just quickly redo that. So 1 week. So we were there. So that's our 1 week. And then we moved to up daily, which was first daily, is that one? Okay, so there's our daily trend at the moment. So we're still under daily trend. We can recover that. We haven't hit the daily break level down there at 111.865. And we haven't retested the range up there at 117. So they might be trying to stay on the wrong side of the daily trend, come up and retest this, and then take the dump. But also, I'd keep an eye on that level because that 114 level is a break level on the daily range that was in here. Sorry, did I get that right? 113.309 is the daily range that was in here. Now, if they want to see, they could potentially try to make that into a daily origin and then just pump up to an all-time high. So where are we? What's that trend? That's that trend. So our daily resistance trend is up there. And then we're going to have an interior. Okay, cool. So yeah, so they're going to open on the wrong side of this trend, but it's not hard closed. They're going to open potentially on a good side to break that trend. And they're recovering the break level. So it's the second daily trend break since being in distribution. So it's probably not over. Like you would typically expect 5 of these for distribution to really flip. So it does look like they're trying to build that support. They're probably going to break the trend. They might still go up to that 116, 117 area and reject. That kind of lines up quite a bit with that liquidity. There's also the backside of some other kind of range that exists in here. So 116 to 117. If they were to go up to that, reject from the wrong side of the trend, they'll probably come down for a day and then maybe have to go up again. And what you'll start to see is these 1-day trends will start to get created, something like that. And then once you've got to 4 or 5 of these is probably when it'll finish. So it's actually not looking that bad on that time frame. Let's have a look at a 2-day. Okay, 2-day looks bad. I knew there was some. So this is looking like it's going to open under trend. The 2-day break level, it's literally teasing us right now. Look what I did yesterday. So 114.227 is the 2-day break level. You want to open on the top side of that. If you open on the other side of that, you can do one of those sort of just tap and dump fast rejections. And then our backside retest is 110.370, and the front side is going to be somewhere inside this candle. It's not a very good engulfed candle, so you'd have to refine it down, but it would be somewhere between top and the bottom of that, so 109 to 107 on the 2-day. So if it opens, we've literally got no downtrend to even establish on the 2-day, so you can't recover until you create a trend and break it. So you have to have trends, you have to have hold levels, you have to create origin levels, and then you can recover. There is an origin level in there, but that would mean it has to go all the way straight back up and over 119.8 without some form of ranging, which just doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. So all that says to me is that we should see a dip and a bounce, a close, a trend, a dip, and then start to break some trends and start to go up. So the 3-day has retested the previous trend from back there. It's bouncing, hasn't lost its break level. Doesn't actually look that bad, but it's got several days to go. The 4-day close today. This is going to create a range trend to the underside here. So like what we've just seen on SOL, we created that range trend. We did that big deviation below it to grab that liquidity, and then we pumped all the way back up to the hold level. That could be the type of thing you're about to see play out on BTC, because it would mean creation of the support, 4 days worth of time where it could dive that support, grab whatever liquidity it wants from these levels that need their retests, and then go up. We're also going to lose the uptrend when this closes today, which moves to there. But the thing is, the close of the candle as it currently is would actually be within the new uptrend. So again, that's still pretty bullish. It just comes down to, do they do that dive to grab that liquidity before they go up, which they might do. So yeah, it's ultimately bearish if you lose a trend, but the size of the wick is great. I mean, if they sell it down in the next 1 hour and 48 minutes, which is kind of like what they did yesterday, the sell pressure just came on really close to the end of the day, and they pushed it down to screw up the structure so that we could then have that dump day version 2 on BTC. So yeah, if they sell this down towards the end of the day, that's probably going to mean dump day version 3. Else, it's going to move the trend. That could mean dive day or bounce day. So, and I think we have tapped the break level there at 112.6. So it's closing back up inside the break. It's going to move the trend. It's going to create a range trend. The only question is then, do we get a dive? Get a dive? That's a dive you long, because it'll go back up. Looking good. 5-day. So 5 days in rejection off the hold level, which was that initial return when it went back to 116.6. So we said, hey, if it goes there, it'll probably reject. That's what it did. The target for that was 112.2273, and it looks like it got pretty close. It got sort of within about $100, $90 of that. So Bitcoin can be a bit like that. Sometimes it's misses by $50 or whatever, but that's it's going to close from the looks of it under the range trend. So that might just retest the range trend and then give us a dip and a dive through the other range trend that's sitting down here. The levels are all the same, 110, 108, 107. It's all in that same sort of area. So this time frame is saying that we should see one final dip down. They left that $100 gap. They have these lower levels to retest, and they're probably going to lose the range trend, or close under the range trend. it is possible, like legit possible, that it could go and retest those higher levels. But the thing is, 119.8 is going to close and convert to being an origin level today. So if it goes back and retests that level, that's an origin level, and that will bounce. So that should come down. So it would be very odd for that to get touched and not reject after it already created distribution on first rejection. And this today is the closure of the distribution range. So we lose the main trend, which is coming through here. It moves to there. Once again, if we dive that trend, we come back up. So it looks like we want dump and go up. That's looking a bit better because of that. The 7-day time frame, which closed yesterday, this is pushing up into the resistance. So like the 5-day pushed up and then dumped down, this is pushing up to dump down. It hasn't done the dump down thing yet. It's on the wrong side of trend. That's a break level up there at 120. It's not an origin level because it hasn't done the distribution yet, but it's you've got that other one there at 118. So this closes today on the 8-day. So if we close under 115.003, which was previous support on different time frames for one of the bounces we had the other day up to 116, if we close on this time frame under there, then that has flipped that support to resistance on the 8-day, and then a rejection off that would target these same sort of front side, backside levels. There is a slightly lower level, a couple of slightly lower levels down here at 106 that this time frame could target if it doesn't bounce off this area in here at 110.6 or 110.2. So you could also say the thesis is that we're probably not going to bounce off a front side level from Bitcoin at this moment. We're probably going to bounce off a backside level, and if we do, we're going to go to an all-time high, and then that's quote unquote our non-sustainable bounce, and then the bear market kicks off and it'll go back to the front side level and it'll fail and keep on going down. So something in here is going to be the final move that just doesn't cover. So 10-day is still trying to work its way through trend. Still looks like it's trying to come down. It looks like it's retesting the backside of the unbroken trend. So most of the stuff is just looking all the same. It's all basically retesting or looking to slowly move down because the time frame's quite high. Let's see, we've got this closes today. So this is the 29-day close. So it would be, it's kind of medium bearish where it is, just simply because it's going to open the next candle on the wrong side of that interior uptrend. So that's about that 114 level. It could still bounce off this other trend at 113.4, but probably not. What's going to happen, I'd say, in this case, it's going to open on the wrong side trend. You may get a very slight retest to the backside of that trend, and then it'll come down to the hold level, which is going to be, again, that 110.6 is going to be sort of the backside that exists within that handle. And then the front side is going to be 108, 106. It's also going to be 108. Lines up with that. So yeah, this is still looking like it's trying to get in a position to reject down to these levels. It has not hard closed over the top of the resistance, so it still looks like it wants to come down. If it closes, if they do the sell down thing towards the end of the day and they push it down below that trend, which would be about 112.7, then that's definitely more bearish. And you may not see the bounce back up before the drop. It'd be sort of more, it would give it the ability to have just a faster drop. Resistance not closed. Rejection. So time to go. Yeah, this closes today. Okay, so when this closes, it moves this trend, which is currently situated at about 99, and it moves it to the top side there, and it becomes about a 126-ish target, and about a 99 or 100 retest. It'll be closing over the break level at 108, funnily enough. That's not a full candle, so that can be a little bit tricky. But it's still closing above trend. That candle didn't exist. It would be to there. So yeah, so it's still closing above trend, which should be about 105. So this could drop it to sort of anywhere from, if it went up first and hit that trend and rejected down, it could drop it anywhere down to 108, 106, or 99. I'd be quite bearish if it did that. Like if it went up first, that's bad. You don't want to go up first. You want to go down. Because if you go down first, you bounce up to break the trend. If you go up first, you go up to reject the trend to break the horizontal. So yeah, I want to see a dip and a pump. That. Okay. Now this one changed yesterday, and it's just purely in limbo, inducing liquidity. So this is the thing that tells us we're probably going to get a swipe up and down at some point. I don't necessarily think it'll go back down and hit that hold level at 93. Like I do think that's probably left over for bear market, but it's already got that trend shifted into that 127 area. So you can see the time frames are starting to move resistance from bottom to top, and that sort of and it's high time frame resistance. So yeah, they're all starting to prepare themselves for a rejection from the highs. The only thing that might save us from that is if we actually have a good sweep of lower liquidity first, and then what they'll probably try to do is distribute it over the top side of the resistance, and that's effectively where they go up, they punch through the trend, and they go sideways up above the trend, and then they go into the bear market. So that's that time frame is literally just in limbo. We're either waiting for it to go down and hit one. If they did a dead drop right now, it would be 107, 106 to retest the previous trend would be your first support. Sorry, that's the uptrend. It would be. If it retests the previous trend, that's about 100. Yeah, if it did a dead drop. And I don't think it would go to that hold, but just don't have a liquidation, whatever you do between 100 and 93. If you do, they'll come for you. Okay. And the weekly is still rejecting the weekly, and targets are still the same. 110, 102. Same numbers. So that's all right. Let's flip over to so basically BTC. What are we thinking? We're thinking we still really should finish that dip. They do have the ability to create some structure if they want to over the next few days that basically negates the dip and then takes off from there. I'd be super bearish if they do that, but it could happen. All right, let's look at SOL. Wow, what a comeback! So it's shot back up to retest the trend, and I think it will probably still go up to about 189 is really likely, and that's just simply because if you bounce a trend, you typically go to a hold, and we did. So we bounced this trend down here, we bounced this trend here, we swept all the liquidity under the range trend. So that was pretty much the entire time that we spent between 106 and 181, sorry, 179 186 and 181 was really about just taking all of that trend liquidity under the range, and we bounced off the trend that we moved, and we've gone back up. So logically, if we want to go back up, we need to hit a hold level, which means we need to come up there. And that means we need to hit 189.526. The way to do that is to hover around this price point and stay over 186.7 as a daily close. And if we stay over that, we can go up and hit the hold level. Maybe even do a retest of the backside of that trend that we broke. That's a range trend, so that's why we didn't move it. Goes to there. So yeah, you may do even a backside retest of that trend at about 190 as time goes on. You've got your exterior daily trend up there at 191. That's got a lot of confluence with liquidity. So this has gone really bullish really quick, and that usually means it's a trap. If BTC dumps, this will probably still just come back down. And I guess the key thing to remember is, yeah, sure, it's bullish to shoot up like this, but what have we really hard closed? Not much. And even if we open over the top side of trend today, and even if we pump up into the hold, even if we hit the break, even if we retest 191, doesn't mean anything until the candle closes. So in fact, it's not a hard close of the break level, even if it does close tomorrow, so it needs more time. So this is looking really bullish, but be cautious. We've got places to reject, like 189.5. We could reject and create a origin off the break at 191. We could come all the way up to, probably not going to come all the way up to there, but yeah. So we could reject around 191. We could reject around 189. May not hard close the thing. So just, if you've got some profits there, it's not a bad idea to look to take something. We could just do a really neat little, they could sell this down a little bit before the end of the day, get it just perched under the trend, like what they did where they rammed up into the weekly just before the dump and then sent it down. So they could just bring this back a little bit. Doesn't even have to be much, you know, like 50 cents, 80 cents. So if we went down to 186.4 before the end of the day, reject the trend straight back to the hold, try to break the hold. So you'd see an instant move after close, probably down towards 183 again, and then it would try to break the hold to go deeper. So let's look at two-day. Two-day close today is going to create a interior downtrend. Good. We need downtrends if we want to try and break up. But it's the first one, so it's not, again, not hugely wonderful. Now, if we do open on the other side of that, we could retest this area down here around 182 and then bounce up to 195 to retest the origin level at the top there. That's a two-day genuine origin. It's probably going to reject and break these trends. That could send it lower, in which case we've got retestable areas at 174, 169, and we've got an origin level down there at 157. So that typically origins reject to origins. So these types of timeframes, unless something else pushes them up, these are the ones that actually still do point to the 150s. It's not going to happen in a straight line candle like a lot of people would think it's going to go up and it's going to bleed down and break things and give you hope and then keep going down and give you some more hope and keep going down. In other words, build liquidity and take it. So let's have a look at our 3-day. It's not really doing too much. It's got a retest 191.9 that it may be pushing its way towards after bouncing the trend. There's no hard close. If it goes up and hits that, it can just dive. So this closes. So 4-day closes today. It's going to generate another 4-day origin level at 191.9. Not a hard close of the break. No accumulation candle with the body over the top of it. It would have to pump up over 189.526 which is the daily rejection level. So it has to do that before the end of today if it wants to flip bullish, and that's not likely. You typically reject off rejection levels. But it's still, broadly speaking, holding that outer trend. But it is going to lose, not quite, it's kind of on the corner, so it's really not a trend loss, but it's pretty close. It would be if it touches the origin level. After that, it could drop. Not really doing too much. It's just retesting trends on the 5 days. 7 day, not really doing too much. 8 day. So it hasn't broken out of trend because it's in distribution. And if it did, even if it did the wick so long, it would just move the trend up and make it a rejection. It has to close over 191.782 today if it actually wants that time frame to be a trend break. It has hard closed that area at 168.29, so that's positive, because that means that if it does dive the trend and go to any of those other levels based on any of those other time frames, it should just be able to pump back up. And if it was to go, I don't think it could reach 147, which is sort of the lowest area there. Yeah. So 10 day is retesting the backside of its resistance trend now. So that could reject from there. See if there's anything really glaringly obvious. Nothing going on there. Okay. Nope. So 23 day hasn't really, no, it's just stuck in the middle. 29 day is going to close back under that old break level, but that doesn't really tell us too much. It's going to close above the trend, assuming that's the trend, but again, it's in distribution. It's going to, it's not really saying too much. It's definitely not saying breakout yet. Okay. The 3 day has trend rejection around 195. So that's ticking along. This is one of the ones that closed yesterday. I've posted about this online. This is potentially the move that once they sell down, if they want to unload their bags along here, then they're going to unload them along this trend, and then they're going to dump down to 173.241. So that was one of the ones that was in limbo the other day. It was in between. So that's potentially rejection to keep an eye on. The 58 day closes today. Depending on whether you take the trend, this is a really hard one to actually figure out, but it's either going to reject from around that 189 level and at least head back for a trend retest. Yeah, that does open the door or pathway to 149, but there's probably some other stuff that will come in. Like I say, I don't think it's going to be a straight line candle, so you could, even if it was to try and go there, you can still just trade the bounces. Now that's money compounding, really. So look, this, yeah, trends below, so yeah, it could. But that's where you've got things like this one. Bigger time frame, 77 days. At some point, this needs to do a trend retest, and that's up here at 248. And it may already be in motion just with the bounce that we had back then off 174. But these are the kind of timeframes that will kick in if we do get one of those lower time frame rejections. Like if it sends us down here and then we hit these really big events, then we can move to these really big events. So I don't know. Overall, I'm pretty bullish on SOL. The weekly is, holding up above all of its weekly range trends. It's got 4 days to go. It's not in accumulation, but if we get an accumulation close up here, everything in these weekly levels becomes support, which at the moment it's really just this annoying range trend through here, which is kind of like a bungee cord pulling it back. That sort of 183 level. So we're just going to try and pull it back to that until we get an accumulation close clear of that line, full body clear of that line. Yeah, and our weekly resistance interior trends up at about 208. So if we head up there, we do it in say 2 weeks, and this will give you a bit of a, this is kind of how my mind works. If we close like that at the end of the week, it's no harm, no foul. If the next week bounces and closes an accumulation, doesn't touch the trend, it creates a hold level then at 191. And then we bounce the hold level and attack the trend to break the trend to move up to the 248 level. So it can all play out over a couple of weeks. It's patience. And just don't get greedy. And the monthly is still in a great spot for continuation up. So, and I was looking at this as well on the 8-day close today. So we've rejected on the top side. We're pushing through that hold level, which is why you might see that retrace on the overall market, but we still have trend support. So there's a retrace. I solidly believe it to buy the dip. And then buy the dip of the dip and the dip of the dip and the dip of the dip. But either way, you're going to want to be in if we get a dump. Yep, cool. Right, so that's all I have for today. It's probably quite a long one, and I probably just rabbited on a bit too much. Sorry about that. Absolutely stunning day outside, and that makes the aircon really good to stay inside. So yeah, we'll update you later if there's more. And thanks again for the amount of views and the amount of comments and the amount of likes. It's yeah, the views is going through the roof online, which is really, really cool. And yeah, new faces popping into the Discord, and we've just hit 300 members in there, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, we'll see you again later on, or if it's a really boring day, I'll probably see you tomorrow. Cheers, bye.